ties into that window of stress tolerance. I call it the anatomy of learning. Let's look at the brain. Now, there is a lot of information now about how the brain operates, how the brain is influenced through different insults as far as prenatal trauma, drugs, alcohol exposure, early childhood histories, how the brain gets developed very differently. I want to give you just enough that it starts making sense, that you have the knowledge, but more importantly, the application. How do you take that neuroscience, that brain information, and actually put it into everyday life? So when the rubber hits the road. So let's get the basics here. This outer shell of the brain, this is called the neocortex. This is what separates all of us from the animal kingdom, right? We're all animals, but humans have a overdeveloped, well-developed, I should say, neocortex. This is where we can think abstractly. We can have different ideas of judgment. We can have morals, ethics. Again, these are these higher order abstract concepts the other animals in the animal kingdom can't go to because they don't have this part of the brain. Good judgment is here. Sequential thinking. Now, these are important parts. Sequential thinking is when we figure out, wow, if A happens, then B will happen, and then C will follow. For a child, an example of that would be, if I get my homework done, then I turn it in, if I turn it in at school, and then I get to go to Fun Friday. That all takes sequential thinking. And it's important to understand that because, see, Billy doesn't always have access to this part of the brain. And so many of our techniques in working with kids all have to do with assuming that the child can think very clearly, that they can think logically. Not a lot of our kids can do that, especially when they get stressed out. So what we have to talk about then is the second layer of the brain, and this is a little bit more primitive, not as, this is more at the lower subconscious level, but it's the midbrain. The midbrain is where feelings are. This is where we are able to have those great feelings of pleasure and also the difficult feelings of pain. So pain and pleasure is stored in here. This is where the amygdala is, which is the fear receptor of the brain. And we are designed to be in a place of survival on this planet because that's how we have been able to come about and still have a human species, is that we've been attuned to stress. We've been attuned to fear. Our bodies do react. They are programmed to react to fear, right? That's a basic survival. So we have to understand that when our kids are stressed out, they are going to automatically be in that place of fear. They're going to perceive everything as a danger. They're going to perceive things as threatening automatically. And then plus you put a difficult history on top of that. And of course, they've been solidified to always look at the fear, to always look at the bad side of things, to always feel the negative. And that's where a lot of our kids are going to be operating from. Now notice that feeling part of the brain, the midbrain, or really the limbic system, is in a different area than the logical part of the brain. Again, think about this. How many of you all have been upset in the past over something that happened to you? Maybe that someone did something to you, they betrayed you, they did something behind your back, and you were really, really upset, right? Down in this midbrain. You were furious. You were just beside yourself. You were red in the face. You were ready to, I don't know, so for y'all that are hyper aroused, you're ready to, go hit a punching bag. For those that are hypo aroused, you're ready to go sleep and just disappear from the world. Now, how many of y'all have been in that place, but you have not been able to think logically? You have not been able to say, oh, well, that probably that person just really didn't understand me. There's a perfectly logical reason for why they did this. I am sure that I am just missing a piece of the information. You couldn't go to that, right? That's what I'm talking about. You have been down here and you've been like, oh, there I am. You've been all over the place. But you have not been able to think in a very logical, rational manner about why this is happening. We have all been there. When we're emotional, we are not logical. Now, what I want you to correlate this to is when our kids are emotional, which means when they're acting out, how many times do we give them logical thinking? We tell them, well, Billy, you need to think clearly through this. You need to make a better choice. You need to understand that if you don't act better, then you're going to get a detention. If you do this again, you're going to get suspended. We give them logic, we give them sequential thinking. Guess what? They're all down here, right? Boom, 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 they're all down here. And we're up here giving them these ideas of how to have better choices, how to think logically and sequentially. Do you see how we've kind of missed the boat? If you're really upset and you're angry and someone comes up to you, even when they have a loving intention and they say, you really just need to calm down and make a better choice, what do you think you're going to do? Do you think that's really going to be helpful? That gets you madder, doesn't it? In fact, what it does, it puts you down into this lower part of the brain. It puts you down here. It puts you down into the reptilian brain. And that's what happens to our kids, is that when they get upset, a lot of times we create it because we give them logic, we give them choices, then we sink them lower. The lowest part of the brain is down here, the reptilian brain. And just by the word, it's the most primal part of the brain. This is when there is no thinking. This is an automatic pilot. This is when people snap, when people automatically, do dangerous things and they fear that they're going to protect themselves. And so when our kids get aggressive, really aggressive and violent, these are the kids that are down in the reptilian brain. Hopefully we're not dealing with too much of that in our class at all. But what I want us to see is that a child may be up here in the midbrain, up here somewhere, and we're sinking them lower and lower into the reptilian brain. A lot of times by the techniques that we're using, the words we use, our own tone of voice, our dysregulation, they get scared, they get in that deeper fear state of how that happens. What I want us to understand is that for our Andys in the classroom, Andy is typically more operating out of the neocortex, which means that Andy, I call it working from a top-down control. Andy will get upset, right? He has emotions down in the midbrain. He gets upset. He gets aggravated. We all get this, and Andy's going to have some emotions, of course. But Andy can think clearly. You see, he still has the neocortex that is controlling things. The neocortex is still in charge. So Andy can think clearly through things and go, wow, I'm really mad at this kid next to me. I really feel like punching him, but I'm not going to do that because morally it's not right. My parents have instilled good ethics in me. I'm going to take a deep breath. In fact, I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm going to go tell the teacher. So Andy has emotions, but he doesn't let them govern him. Wow, what do you think happens with Billy? Billy has the emotions. He gets upset, and he goes, I'm really upset with the kid next to me. I feel like punching him. In fact, Billy doesn't even go through that thought process. He's already in his autopilot. He just gets mad, and he does what? Bam, punches him. He never gets to the point that he actually can think clearly. He can't access this part of the brain that says, wow, if I punch this kid, I'm going to get in trouble. I could get suspended. Wow, that could really make a big difference on my college degree. He can't think that way. That's too far in the future, because here's a very important point. In the midbrain, life happens in the next 15 seconds. There is no future. It's right now or nothing. I'm going to feel this. I'm going to act upon my feeling. And it doesn't matter what the consequence is because life doesn't even exist in the future. That's how important it is to see what part of the brain this kid is acting out of. So I call this working from a bottom-up control. Sometimes I've had therapists and I've read articles that say, well, this child has no conscience. This child, never feels guilty. I don't believe that's true because the feelings of guilt, the feelings of consciousness are going to be in what part of the brain? Right here in the neocortex. Well, if Billy is operating from down here in the midbrain, is he going to have a conscience in the midbrain? No. And I think you all have seen this. A kid will do stuff. They'll steal something. They'll lie about something. And in the moment, it's like they don't even care. because they can't care, because they can't access the part of the brain that is able to care. Now, once that child calms down and they realize what they have done, you know what happens then, don't you? They come back and they apologize, and all of a sudden, they now have what? A conscience. Because now they're in the neocortex. Now they're in a top-down control. They can start checking in with what is right, what is wrong, understanding that they made a mistake, that they shouldn't have done that. It's when the child's calm they can do that. And so we have to just recognize it's a matter of timing where they are in their brain. This is basically survival. This is where we have to recognize that our kids can't think clearly.